Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on the call today. If you'd like to introduce yourself to everybody here.
Hi, I'm Mike from Southpaw, and I'm the National Sales Manager.
Thank you. And it's really great to talk to you because I know when I was building my own clinic, you were a really big source of information and help for me. So it's really nice to have you here to
Thank you.
discuss all the different options. So if a therapist like I was is looking into setting up their very own occupational therapy space to offer sensory integration, what considerations do you think that they would need to have looking at a space that they've already got or creating a space from scratch?
The size of the space is really important.
Yep.
Um, the height, the width, the length of the room. So ideally, you're going to need at least 4 meters by 4 meters. And that's also allowing for the fact that there's no radiators in the room that might
Mm.
come into that space, windows, other obstructions that come into the room, doors opening into that space. But if you have 4 by 4 meters, then that's a really good place to start. And then you also really need about 2.5 meters or above in height, depending on what suspension you're working with, but a minimum
Yep.
of 2.5 meters.
And the height difference, that's really from the top of the mat that you're using when you're on the equipment to the suspension point in the ceiling, isn't it?
Yeah, and
It's
that's
not
one of the
from the
reasons.
base level.
That's one of the reasons why we say 2.5 meters,
Mm.
because you can look around. There's no law to it. There's no hard and fast rule. But the reason we
Mm.
say that is some of the swings that we use are quite long, and when you have a mat below it that can be 50 mil thick and it's high density, then if the ceiling's too low, you can get to a point where the swing and the mat get too close together, and you don't want people's ankles getting caught underneath when they're swinging. So if you've got at least 2.5 meters, then that gets you around that issue.
And you're talking particularly about the arc of movement when people are going forwards and backwards, their ankles can get caught on the mats. And
Yeah,
there's actually been reports of people fracturing their ankles in the past,
it
hasn't there?
has.
From
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So
It's
that
because they get caught underneath, and the arc's also really important because you need enough space from the center point of the swing to the wall. You need about 1.6, 1.7 meters, so
yeah.
they can do a full swinging and that full vestibular motion.
And
And
I
then yeah,
guess
that's safe.
and I guess Mike, if you're working with adults, that arc of movement needs to be slightly elongated to allow for the height of the person lying down
Yeah,
on their
yeah,
tummy.
yeah. If they're prone, then yeah, then you need it even further. But
Would you say
as I say,
between 1.8 meters from the central point to the wall to 2
yeah,
meters
yeah. I mean,
distance
as
is
I say,
enough?
yeah, there's no hard and fast law on it,
Mm.
and obviously we'd be expecting the person working with the person on the swing to be almost hands-on and close supervision. But yeah, if
Yeah.
you're doing if you're 1.8 meters, then you're going to be about right with an adult laying
Yeah.
prone.
And I'm guessing the floor space, the 4 by 4 meters, that would ideally need to be level, not at all jumping or steps.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a level floor. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. So if somebody is hiring a space or if they're creating their own and they're thinking about suspension options, what
Yeah.
kind of information would they need to have about the ceiling load, the weight limits, and who would they get that information from before they make any decisions?
Okay. So the ceiling needs to be able to take a working load of 1,000, excuse me, 1,000 pounds at a 45-degree angle. To kind of explain that, a working load is the movement that's going through the suspension points. So
Hmm.
if you were to get a set of scales and to jump onto the scales, when you landed, the needle of the scales would go a lot further than what you actually weigh because your working load is going through it. And that's
Yep.
the same when you're on a swing. So it needs to be 1,000 pounds as you're working through that swing at the 45-degree angle of the arc. Now, obviously there's lots of different ceilings, they're all made in different ways with different materials. So you need to get a structural engineering.
Mm,
Southpaw can't tell you what the working load of a ceiling is.
mm.
So you get a structural engineering, they can confirm it can take that working load, and they'll also see what the ceiling's made of and where the beams are. Because it's not just about what beam's up there, so a metal beam or wooden beam, it can take that. It also needs to be in the right point. So the ceiling above me, there are beams in there, but it could be they run in parallel to where the lights are that you can maybe see.
Mm.
And that suddenly means that you're too close to the wall because
Yeah.
you're closer than that 1.8 meters.
Mm.
So it's proved problematic to find a ceiling of the correct height with the correct working load with the beams in the right place. Now,
Yeah.
if you're having somewhere built, then obviously you can get around that and you can have it built to those specifications. But they're all things that you need to bear in mind. And also, you also need that 2.5 meters in height, which is why we provide lots of different options away from ceiling suspension to get you around that. So we have the custom support structure, which basically looks like a massive football goal with feet, which has 3 different swing points on, so it meets fidelity. And then we also have pop-up swings. So for therapists who are going around their area in the car, we have the itinerant frame, which you can take around with you. It pops up in just a couple of minutes.
And how heavy is that, Mike? So say if I were to take that out to a school or put it in my car, how heavy is it? Because I need to be careful of my own back care, lifting in and out.
Yeah, it's about, I think it's like 15 kilograms. It's a weighty bit of kit.
Yeah.
And it's got to be heavy because it's got to be strong, because it will take up to kind of 18 or 19 stone per person on it.
Yeah.
So it is a big chunky bit of kit. You're going to be using both hands to carry it. It does obviously fold down and it fits into a bag. But I can carry, it has a shoulder strap as well, so I can carry it over my shoulder. But
it's about 6 meters long, isn't it, when it's laid flat? So it should fit through a car or on a roof of a car if you're transporting it.
It's about 1.5 meters in length. It fits in an estate car because it folds right now. So it goes to between, when you pop it up, it goes to between 2.2 and 2.8 meters in height, depending on who's using it. But it has telescopic legs, so it folds down, goes into a bag. I've got an estate car, and I fold my back seat down, and it fits from the back of the car to just about the front seat. So it is quite long. If you've got a little iGo or something, then you're going to be struggling to get it in. But if you've got kind of a Ford Focus size car, then you'll be okay. But it is a chunky bit of kit because it needs to be strong. Things to bear in mind with the itinerant frame when you're using it: when you pop it up, it has like red guide ropes, which also give it structural integrity. But those guide ropes are also where you're not meant to swing out from as well. So if you've got an adult on there, as long as they're within that working load, they mustn't swing out beyond the red guidelines, otherwise it can tip over.
And I guess the downside of that is that it reduces the arc of movement and the speed that you can move. So if you're working with a client who needs that vestibular input, that really intensive vestibular input at great velocity, that's going to limit your options with that person, isn't it? If you had the portable swing.
Absolutely.
So the other one that you were talking about was the steel frame that you can, it's a custom built frame, isn't it? Where you can put it in a building and get it attached. So I guess the downside of that, if you're hiring a space, is it's a permanent structure, really, isn't it? And so you'd need permission to put that up, and then
I mean, there's pluses and minuses. Yes, it's a permanent structure, so it's there and it's in the room and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But the other benefit we've found is when people are hiring a space, often they're not allowed to drill into walls. They're not allowed to put things into the ceilings. With the custom support structure, if it's a long-term hire, it's where your business is going to be. You're renting that space long-term. You can put it up. It doesn't need, its own weight holds it in place, so it doesn't have to be drilled into the floor. So you're not going to be damaging the property in any way. And then, as it's a big steel frame, we pad the feet and we pad the legs up to 2 meters. And then obviously there's also padding underneath as well.
That's great, because that ensures the security when people are running around, or if the space is used by anybody else and it's not going to pose a risk. That's a really good option.
Absolutely. And if you look on our Instagram channel, there's lots of different videos of using a custom support structure and using the swings on there. So it'll give you an idea of what they look like. Because me saying a big football goal doesn't always give you the correct image, but it's the best way I can come up with describing what it looks like.
And we were talking a little bit about some of the in-beam or in-ceiling options. So I gather, so for myself, I use the beam hooks, which is basically a metal plate that has to sit on the side of a beam, and it's drilled into the beam at 5 points. It's very strong, and it's got a rotational device underneath it. It rotates round. So I think that was the option I used. But what are the other options? So if somebody has a ceiling that they have beams running across, they've got wooden or steel beams, what options do they have for suspension?
So again, once the structural engineers checked it out, it's different types of eye bolts and different types of fixings. It's on page 49 of the Southpaw catalogue, and it's on the website as well. it's plates, as you say, that drill into the sides. Some drill underneath. The eye bolt hangs down, and then you're clipping your carabiner in. And then you can have a rotation device. You can have the most overnamed product in the world, which is a vertical stimulation device, which is basically bungees which allow you to bounce.
Yeah.
But all of our kit will work with the different eye bolts that you have to have. It's basically a variety of ways of fitting an eye bolt to a ceiling, depending on the ceiling that you've got. But as I've said probably way too many times, the first thing you've absolutely got to check is that working load, and get a structural engineer to check that. And then we can find a way of working with it. I mean, stay away from things like concrete ceilings. And the reason we say that is if a concrete ceiling gives way, it doesn't just have a little bit that comes down, it's a big chunk. So we recommend you don't go near them. Wooden beams, metal beams.
And how have you found structural engineers' willingness to take on the responsibility for making those calculations?
It is varied around the country. We've tried to form partnerships with some, and we're still working on that. Some people will go in and will give a good report, and we get all the details we need. Other people are a lot more resistant. So maybe go on Trust a Trader and see if there's a few different people you can get hold of to come and help.
I think in my own experience, I hired a very experienced structural engineer who was used to building commercial buildings, and when he found out I was building a therapy clinic to hang effectively equipment that people could use in a therapeutic way, he was very anxious about putting his name to the calculations. And I know that your team were very, very helpful with the toing and froing of that communication to reach a final decision. So that was really helpful.
This is probably the most regular call I have.
Yeah.
And the team in the office have, asking about working loads and how to suspend, and which is why we've come up with a multitude of options to be able to help you.
And I think from going through the process myself, I would say what's really helpful is to know what the walls are made out of, because like you say, the roof sits on top of the walls, or the ceiling sits on top of the walls, and there's that sideward force. So you need to make sure that the walls are stable. And I had mine reinforced with concrete either side, and then I had the roof was over-engineered to withstand sideward and forward motion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you have a room that's limited in size, when you're swinging, we when it's necessary, we pad the walls. And obviously they need to be able to take the weight of that, and maybe someone even who's upset pulling on that padding. Yesterday I was in a children's hospice, and they had basically prefab walls, so that's quite problematic for us to attach to. And then also in some clinics, they'll put eye bolts in the walls as well for generating motion and pulling yourself. So again, you need a structural engineer to check the working load of that as well. And there are a huge variety of walls out there. I try and pretend I know what I'm doing and knock on the wall when I'm doing my survey to see what
but I think the key image here is if a therapist is thinking, the key message here is if somebody's thinking about setting up a clinic or they're not sure, just to give you a call really. And you serve a particular area in the UK, and I know that there's lots of other reps within the team that support therapists across the UK really. So I guess it would be calling into Southpaw to look at the suspension options and have a chat initially. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And whoever answers the phone knows most of the answers to this. Or you can come through to me directly. They'll transfer you through, and we can always come out and talk to you about it.
So the ceiling options really, if you want to go into the ceiling, it's the beam kit into a wooden beam or the steel eye bolt, and then the other options for if you can't access the ceiling for suspension, the other options are this custom built steel frame and the itinerant frame, which is the portable version.
We've got a C frame as well, which is a luxury frame that looks like a C frame, and that's got a bar in it. So again, it can have 3 points. But the two most popular ones are the custom support structure, just because it gets up and out of the way. Though it can look like it's dominating a room, because we can make them almost any width, but they're kind of 3.5 meters or more wide. It gives you a lot of flexibility because you can pull the mats up in between and kind of carry on, and it can be 3 meters high. So it is nicely out of the way. So yeah,
So you
that
say
that
those are the two options that are
they're,
generally used, yeah?
yeah, they're the two most popular, and every so often we have inquiries about the C frame as well. But the C frames, kind of the padding is fixed in place. But it just,
Is
yeah, it
there any
depends on.
limitations with the C frame, do you think, with different populations?
No, it gives you all the space that you need.
Mm,
It's more to do with it's weird because even though in the pictures in the catalogue it looks smaller,
mm,
it actually takes up in some ways more space just because of the feet and the matting over it. It dominates the room a bit more,
mm.
which is why we go down the custom support structure.
And I guess with the back, the C frame arch, that poses a bit of a block if somebody's trying to get that arc of movement. That
Yeah,
might be
so
the
and
risk.
again, it pushes it into the room because of, as you say,
Yeah.
because of that arch.
Mm,
The custom support structure's got feet on the bottom. They stick out 2.4 meters in total, so kind of half of that in each direction. There's no getting around the fact that because these pieces of equipment need to be safe. There's people swinging on them.
mm.
They are big, chunky bits of kit, which is why you need a decent size room.
Yeah. And those options you've just discussed, they're not necessarily portable. So you'd need to make sure that you either own the space or it's a place that you've had a long-term hire option. But the
Yeah,
itinerant frame is one that you can take to and from different locations fairly
yeah.
easily. Yeah.
Absolutely. The itinerant frame, once you're used to it, you can get it up and down in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to use.
Yeah.
But that's only a single point swing. It has a rotation device built in, so you can use things like cuddle swings and platform swings on it.
Mm.
But it does limit you a bit. You as a therapist, you wouldn't have the weight limit for you to be able to get on the swing with them, whereas you can on something like the custom support.
I think it's 21 stone, isn't it? The itinerant swing, the weight limit. Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
that's what the catalog says. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be pushing it for me. I would
Mm.
I would say kind of 17, 18 stone.
Yeah.
At the,
Safely.
just just to be safe.
So if
Because
you're if you're
it's not just obviously the working load of the frame. You've got to look at the working load of each individual swing as well.
yeah,
And some swings won't take anything like 20 stones. Some of them will
yeah.
take an awful lot less. So we've talked about working loads of ceilings, working load like the custom support structure takes a working load of £1,000. You can get a whole load of people on there,
Mm.
but the individual swings do not. So please, when you're using our swings, either check the website or check our catalogue, or in fact, they all come with instructions, and each individual swing has an individual working load. So make sure you check that out before you use it.
One thing I found really helpful with the working loads in my own clinic is I've got fabric paints and permanent markers, and I've written the working load on every single piece of equipment. So if I'm working with an adult or a younger person and a carer, or myself and the person, I can quickly calculate in my mind, is this safe for both of us on? Is it safe for me, the parent, and the child? Is it safe for the adult and myself? So that's a really good tip. So just to write all the working loads on your equipment so you can see it at any one time. I found that really
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah, and I've seen schools do color coding as well,
Yeah.
which works for them.
That's a good idea too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So say for example, there's a therapist and they're listening to this and they're thinking, well, none of those options are viable for me. I can't have a space that I can rent. I can't have something in the ceiling. I can't take an
Yeah.
itinerant swing because I've got dog crates and baby chairs and everything in the car. What other
Yeah.
options do they have to generate that kind of vestibular input in sessions? What kind of equipment do you offer at Southpaw
Okay.
instead of?
I was with a customer just this week up in Hartlepool, who the only room they have is on the top floor of a 4-story. Well, basically it's a house,
Mm,
and it was a very small room. You're not well. We couldn't have got one of our frames up there to install it anyway. So
mm.
we had to start looking at different options. So you can have inflatable options like your peanut balls or your walruses, because you can roll and rock on them. We do one of my favourite products called the rocking barrel, which is a great big barrel that just about fits in the back of an estate car. It's a big old thing. You can lie on top of that and roll over. You can be inside it and roll.
I guess
There's a
that could be
whole
used as a safe space as well. So that could be a multiple use, couldn't it? Yeah,
yeah, I can get
yeah,
inside the other one.
yeah.
It's a multiple use.
That's
But is what
great.
we can do for you is we can look at designing sensory circuits, because obviously we do a complimentary service where I can come out measure the space, get an idea of your requirements, maybe the pupils in that school requirements, or the people you're working with. And the team in the office can then design you a sensory circuit looking what's best
Amazing.
in that space. And certainly at the moment, in the days of this wonderful virus, we have products that can be easily cleaned as well that can give you
That's
that
so
memory.
important, isn't it? And I think
Yeah, yeah,
particularly if you're a therapist traveling from place to place, or if you're going into a space and you've come from another environment, it's so important that we've got that health and
yeah.
safety and the hygiene and the cleaning
Absolutely.
protocols in place.
A diluted Milton spray seems to be what a lot of people are using. So on our rocking barrel, for example, it's all double stitched.
Yeah.
It's really easy to clean because obviously you've got to clean in between spaces. For when people are looking for crash pits, they're staying away from ball pools now because you've got to wash the balls every time, and
Exactly.
they're using the
Yeah.
Cloud9,
Yeah.
which is a lot of deep pressure. So with the ball pool and COVID, obviously people are staying away from the balls because every time someone goes in it, you've got to clean the balls every time.
Yeah.
Little tip that I've been given on cleaning the ball pool balls: hula hoop, black bin liner to scoop them out.
Oh, great idea.
And certainly schools and some centres I've been to, they have showers there. So people are buying a fishing net, putting the balls in the fishing net, washing it with the shower, diluted
Yeah.
Milton spray. Job's good, but sorry,
And
I
leaving it
digress.
there to drip dry.
Absolutely. But with the Cloud9, obviously it has an outer cover which you can wash it on a very low heat, so like a 30-degree heat, and do not tumble dry it, otherwise
It shrinks. Yes.
So yeah.
So those are some really good options. Can you think of anything else that therapists could use for the vestibular stuff? So I guess rollerboards, scooter boards would be really helpful.
We have rocking boards.
Yeah.
We do an adult and a child rocking board. So certainly the child one's going to fit in the back of a small car. So that gives you the rocking motion as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts in there. Sit down with a cup of coffee and have a flick through the catalogue.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
That can get a bit expensive when people do that, but
Yes.
you can certainly give us a call.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on our customer service, and we're more than happy to talk to you.
That's really helpful.
People in the office. There's me on the phone. It may be if you ring me, get put through directly. I'm battling the M25, but I've got hands free in my car, so I can speak to you safely. But yeah, we're always happy to talk you through the options. That's no problem at all.
So just in summary, the therapist, if they're approaching you, they'll need to get the structural engineers sign off that if they're looking to put suspension in the ceiling, that the ceiling will hold it.
Yes.
Once they've got the sign off, then they can liaise with you or other companies about suspension, I guess, and then look at the different options that are available. But they need to make sure that from the central point that there's 2.5 meters from the point to the floor,
At least
and that
2.5.
and then there's 1.6 to 2 meters either side of that hook in all directions.
Correct. And then the other thing I should say is we also have what's called a maintenance checklist.
Yep.
So every week we would want you to check all the wear points on your swing and on if you're using a custom support structure or an eye bolt in the ceiling. You check every point where there's resistance. So you're looking at the eye bolts, you're looking at the carabiners, you're looking at the frame of the ropes. You're looking at friction points on the swings and making sure nothing's wearing out. Because if they're all guaranteed for a couple of years, but if, for example, you did have an issue and you contacted us, we would ask you for photos of the equipment, and we'd also ask you for your maintenance checklist. Yep. If you haven't filled it out every week, then it invalidates your warranty. And it's also good for health and safety as well. But certainly if you have a room installed, I'd come out and I'd take you through all of that. And there's no charge for that.
That's amazing. It's a really good service. So
we have to. The thing is, everybody knows each other in this industry.
They do.
People like yourselves, occupational therapists, it's amazing how you all know each other. It's remarkable. So you have to give really, we would anyway, but you have to give good customer service because you all talk to one another.
Yeah. And that's how it should be. we liaise with each other quite a lot, and it's a good community, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
No problem at all.
It's been really helpful, and hopefully it's given everybody listening some good ideas about the suspension options that they can consider when they're thinking about setting up their space.
Good stuff. But please, if you need any advice, if you need any help, do not hesitate to pick up the phone or drop us an email, and we will help you to the best of our ability.
And what email should they use, Mike?
Probably the best one is to go for sales@southpaw.co.uk.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, you can go from there.
Thank you very much, Mike. Have a great day.
No problem. Take care. Cheers.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good. Stop the recording. Brilliant. Oh, is it recording
I think
again?
you find yourself doing it.